Feels like just a few days ago the Kentucky Derby was run. That's because it was, actually. Preakness is coming up this weekend, however, and an exciting Preakness. We do not have the Derby winner, but we do have Epicenter coming back, and he is the clear-cut favorite. The best way to play the Preakness, the undercard at the Preakness, the Belmont races, all the races everywhere all the time is through Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, head on over to Naira Bets, use the promo code MATCH200, and we will match with $200 of your initial deposit. Speaking of the Kentucky Derby and Epicenter, you've got three coming back. Epicenter, the second-place finisher, Simplification, the fourth-place finisher, and Happy Jack, the 437th-place finisher. Epicenter ran the best race in the Derby. He made the first move in the pace, and he was able to hold off Zandon, who, a little out of his game, was right behind that one and ran very well. Simplification got a tremendous ride by Jose Ortiz. Jose Ortiz has opted off to ride early voting, who will be a shorter price. He just wasn't quite good enough in the situation. Now, Epicenter's the horse to beat. He's a deserving heavy favorite. He's 6-5 in the morning line. I don't have a strong case against him. On the other hand, it's not as though he has run so well in his races that he is an impossible horse to beat, and he is coming back in 2 weeks. And while Steve Aspin's horses have come back and run well on short rest, doesn't have to come back and run as well, and perhaps somebody else steps forward. I think Simplification is also interesting in this race, though, because he gets post 1 as opposed to post 13 last time. Now, he didn't lose a ton of ground last time, but he did lose some, and he's going to be able to get much better position in this race. So I do think Simplification is a player, at least for a small piece, and maybe for more than that. Epicenter the one to beat, though I am going to try to beat him. I am not going to try to beat him with the Kentucky Oaks winner, Secret Oath, as the filly comes in. Saw a filly win this race 2 years ago when Swiss Skydiver won it, 2009. Rachel Alexandra, the great Rachel Alexandra, got the job done. I would not confuse Secret Oath with really either of those two fillies, though she is obviously very talented. And she was definitively the best horse in the Kentucky Oaks. She moved early. She moved wide. Nest had a perfect trip and a great ride for Myrat Ortiz. She was the best horse. Echo Zulu was probably the second best horse. She ran very well. This is a big step up, though, and while Wayne Lukas has had success with the fillies against the boys before, I feel as though in playing this race, I have to take a little bit of a stand against one of the shorter-priced horses. Secret Oath and early voting, those horses, and it's Secret Oath I'm going to go against. I'm not sure she's necessarily fast enough to win this race, and I don't know we're going to see that big improvement. One of the things that concerns me about her is, yes, she got a lousy trip in the Arkansas Derby, and she probably wasn't winning, but she could have been close. Well, Cyberknife ran 18th in the Derby, and under optimal circumstances, Barbara Road finished a fair 6th. It just wasn't a very good race, and I'm just not sure she's going to match up well against these. And I won't be surprised, even though she's the third choice on the morning line, if she ends up being the second choice. She will vie for that position with early voting. We'll take a look at early voting, finishing second, ahead of the improved Skippy Longstocking, who's back on the outside, a long shot in the Wood Memorial. No excuse for early voting here. I think the pace was very honest. Mo Donegal got an incredible ride to beat him. But early voting ran very well. And what you have to like about early voting, there's a number of things to like about him. He's improved with every start. Every one of his figures is better than the ones before it. He also possesses extreme early speed and is very possibly the controlling speed in this race. And he's a tough horse to run with. His trainer, Chad Brown, feels he can probably rate. So whether or not he is on front, I think it's going to depend on the long shot Fenwick. They may try to send him. If they do, early voting ends up stalking. Now, keep in mind, Epicenter won't be compromised because he has speed of his own. So even if early voting is able to control in the front end, Epicenter will be sitting close enough to him that if he's the better horse, he'll beat him. The question is whether or not he can take that step forward. He worked well in his last race. It's well documented. Connections, Chad Brown and Clarvich Stables did the same situation with Cloud Computing 5 years ago to win the Derby. 3 starts, third in the he was third in the Wood Memorial. Now, he had a sort of a trip in the Wood Memorial. It was kind of hidden. So he was sort of a different story. But early voting is good, and I think he's a very potential upsetter and a horse who could have some kind of tactical advantage in this race. And there's a new shooter who passed in the Derby and rightfully passed. He would have gotten smothered in that pace. I think he's a major, major player. Creative Minister, his connections have put up $150,000 for him to be able to participate in the Preakness and perhaps the Belmont Stakes. And they did it because of this win at Churchill Downs on Derby Day. He ran a 92 buyer. He's improved just like early voting has with every start from a buyer figure standpoint. He got an absolutely perfect trip in this race, just a dream trip. And the second place finisher ran well, had never really run as well as his figure suggested. I kind of want to see it again. He's coming back in 2 weeks. I just am a little dubious that he's going to be good enough to get it done. I'm going to use the bottom of some tries as I try to beat Secret Oath, but in general, I'm not a big fan of Creative Minister coming into this race. Let's talk a little about Armagnac, who's a sort of similar type of new shooter. He's coming in from a big win at California. Now, this horse was trained by Bob Baffert. Was a mediocre fourth in the Santa Anita Derby, where he basically hit the wire with Happy Jack, who will be a huge price. He was able to control on the front end and get everything his own way in this race. He beat another ex-Bob Baffert horse. This horse is with Tim Yakteen, who was 3-5. I don't know. I really feel like he just sort of had a cakewalk in this race. And his quality, to me, is more demonstrated by his performances in the San Felipe and the Santa Anita Derby, and I just don't see that allowance race suddenly making him more of a contender in this race. I want to briefly touch on Skippy Longstocking, who did finish a distant third behind early voting in the Wood Memorial. He improved a lot in that race, and he's the kind of long shot you could throw in third or fourth if you're betting tries or supers. Maybe he's going in the right direction, but I do think it's a fairly cut and dry race. Epicenter's the horse to beat. I'm going to try to beat him with early voting. I'm going to hope he's able to control a bit, and I'm obviously going to hope that he improves and/or Epicenter doesn't run back to his terrific effort in the Derby. I think simplification is very dangerous in this race, and he could work out a good trip from the inside. I'm going to have my tickets as well, and Secret Oath, I'll put her fourth. She's the one that's going to take money that I'm going to try to beat. So I went 5, 8, 1, 4. In the Preakness. We'll see if we get an upset, or we'll see if Epicenter gets it done and solidifies his position as the top 3-year-old in the country. Head to NYRA-Bets. If you're not a member of NYRA-Bets, use the promo code MATCH200. NYRABets.com will match with $200 of your initial deposit. Thanks for playing along, and good luck in the Preakness.